by a toe. Oh, shoot, we didn't do a cold open.
Here it is.
Fuck.
Welcome back, everybody, to the James and Dame Show. I'm Josiah.
And I'm Will.
And we're going to go over week one. A lot of to be determined if they are upsets or not in the future. Because there was a lot of games where we thought one team would win and then they didn't. So starting off, we're going to look at the Ravens and Chiefs because that's the first game. And I also want to bash Will a little bit.
Bash me. What did I do?
I don't know. You let your Ravens lose.
The feet jokes I've been seeing have been everywhere, and it's funny. I think it's funny.
It is pretty.
It was.
I'm not gonna lie.
It was heartbreaking because when it was down to the last play, I was like, "Fuck! There's no way. There's no way we win or we tie this and go to overtime." But seeing that, and I was like, "Oh, there's a way!" And then that happened, and I was like, "This is why I never have hope for anything ever."
Yeah. So Chiefs sneak out with a win again. Just barely though.
Just barely.
They almost lost. So Chiefs fans were a little like, "Oh, that was close. A little too close for comfort." I talked to a couple of them. They were like, "I don't know how we won."
I mean, again, this is another situation it's similar to the AFC Championship. I don't think they should have. I think we had every reason to. I've seen a lot of people blame the refs. I'm not going to do that. I will say they've been really cracking down on illegal formations.
But not false starts on the Chiefs.
Yeah, again, people were making claims. I'm not going to blame the refs because it's a game we could have won anyways. You know, Derrick Henry didn't look as good as we hoped, but he got a touchdown. It was the first touchdown of the season. Lamar ran really well, but he missed some big throws, including one to a wide open Zay Flowers at the end of the game. But we saw people like Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely look really good. So, you know, we take some, lose some. It's going to be, you know, defense isn't going to be as good as it was last year. Offense is coming in a little rocky, but it's week one. Looking at the Chiefs, I mean, they don't look unstoppable.
Mahomes was a little sloppy that game. I'm not going to lie. I've seen some highlights. That was one. I didn't get to watch most of the games this weekend, but I did get to watch a little bit of this one, just from clips. Mahomes didn't look great. He was good. He wasn't great. There were some sloppy plays from his part, and for at least for a few days, he was holding the league's interception rate. So, sorry, I need water. Water.
Yeah, I think Mahomes, I think he'll be fine. He, like, the joke everyone makes is the regular season is still preseason for the Chiefs.
It really is.
They'll make the playoffs, and
somehow
then
BS their way to the championship, and then somehow they'll win it.
So, yeah, not worried about that.
Yep.
Xavier Worthy getting 2 touchdowns. I don't think that necessarily means he's good. One was an end around, which means, you know, doesn't actually require playing receiver. That's kind of just running with the ball. And then the other one, he was left wide open. So,
And I was talking to somebody, and they were like, "Did you see that? Yeah, he's really good now." I'm like, wow, he did a running play, not as a wide receiver, though.
Yeah,
but he's fast, though. Just because he's fast doesn't mean he's good. He's decent. I'll give him that because he's fast. But that doesn't make him like a great wide receiver. Although the Bills are in shambles right now, I will say that.
And we see if he actually turns out to be any good. They're also Week one of a rookie season for receivers, I don't think really means much because most receivers don't start good.
Yeah.
Most of them take time to develop, which also means that if someone has a good week one, I mean, who is it? Who always had really good? Is it like week ones or whatever? Was it Sammy Watkins?
It might have been Watkins.
Who was notorious for just like really good week one performances and then dropped
Yeah,
off.
dropping off the face of the earth. Yep.
But yeah, Chiefs pulled out a win 27-20, really close. I think it was a good game to open.
It's entertaining.
Again, Lamar Jackson 16 carries, 122 yards on the ground. Interesting. But we'll move on to the Friday game in Sao Paulo, between the Eagles and the Packers, which
That is a sad game. Love is out for 5 to 6 weeks with the MCL.
not it. I've heard different things because it was 4 to 6. Because okay. First of all, final 34-29. Jordan Love was injured on the second to last play.
Mm-hmm.
He had I don't remember who it was, fall into his leg as his foot was trapped by another player.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see some pop,
Yep.
which is usually
Not
a sign of something not some sort of CL injury. It was fortunate to be an MCL sprain. It's between, I think, a grade 2 and grade 3. It might have been a grade 1, grade 2 though. But basically, the first report was 4 to 6 weeks, and now from what we've heard from LaFleur, it was he probably won't play next week. Is where they're at, which is
Okay, that's good.
it's like I wasn't expecting him to play next week, but the
Yeah.
fact that you're saying probably won't play next week means he might come back a lot faster than
Yeah.
what we thought. So
It's not an Aaron Rodgers injury.
it is very fortunate because you look at that injury and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, a lot of people were concerned about that. It's not
so-
something you want to happen.
Yeah, and then after that, Malik Willis goes out there and gets sacked on a Hail Mary play, which
Yep.
is, if you're a Packers fan, you don't even care at that point. You're like, just Jordan Love be okay, please. But that is not the only takeaway from that game. One
No.
being how horrible the field was.
That field was terrible. I don't know who approved of it, mostly because it just
Brazil.
yeah, from Brazil, I guess, but it's still,
Yeah, it was not a great field. But looking into some of the players, Jaden Reed had himself a day on only 4 receptions, 138 yards and a touchdown.
yep.
I
had him on my bench in fantasy.
didn't he have like 30 something points?
30 something points.
Yeah. Speaking of 30 something points, Saquon Barkley,
Oh yeah,
I knew it. I want to say I knew he was going to go do well. You take what he did in New York, throw him with a good O-line and good offense with a good coach.
he's gonna
And-
do well.
He had 3 touchdowns. Like, he looked great, which is what I expect from Saquon Barkley, because I've always thought he was one of the best running backs. So maybe he'll have a CMC to the 49ers type season.
Probably.
So
If he stays healthy, he will. Right.
Eagles offense looked really good. Jalen Hurts made a couple.
Oops. And the O line's
Little
still getting
oops.
adjusted from not having Jason Kelsey there anymore, which is a bit weird to look at because Jason Kelsey's been there for a long time.
And they can still do the tush push though.
Not very well.
Maybe not as effective, but they can still tush push.
Yeah.
Both teams defensive woes, but
Yeah.
I think they'll have to figure it out. Eagles especially with some they got a young defense. They got a lot younger. Packers just are young, so
Yeah.
for them to look as good against an Eagles team that looks pretty good, if they both can just figure out their defenses, I think you're looking at that could potentially even be a NFC Championship matchup. I think
really could.
I think there's a lot of good young teams in the NFC. right now.
Yeah, they're
which
they're
is-
developing.
they're not. It's not as lopsided anymore.
Yeah, it's starting to shift back to evenly.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll move into the Sunday games though.
Steelers and Falcons. Yeah, I mean, I'm not that surprised. Cousins is going to be a little rusty coming off an injury like that. There's not much you can do in that situation. Although Fields literally almost doing nothing but somehow winning is kind of funny because all of their points were from field goals.
Yeah, Chris Boswell scoring
MVP.
all 18 points on 6 field goals.
MVP.
Well, I mean, I still think the MVP would go to T.J. Watt because he was literally everywhere.
He's literally the only good piece in that defense.
I would disagree
the
there.
piece of the defense that makes such an impact that if he's not there, that defense kind of falls apart.
I mean, even that's hard to. I think he's just so good that you notice him above everyone else. I still think they have a really talented defense all around. I mean, you still have Patrick Queen.
That's
They have Hayward.
Yep.
They still have Fitzpatrick. Or not Fitzpatrick. What's his name? No, it is Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking of someone else. But they still have a really talented defense, and it's just that T.J. Watt is that much better that he still stands out as like a lone star amongst
Yeah.
everyone. So
Yeah.
again, I like I mentioned last week, Steelers have a really bang up defense. I'm not surprised that this was the outcome. I didn't expect Kirk Cousins to do as poorly as he did, but I don't know. Maybe they'll look a little bit better next week against a not as tough defense. So
Supposedly. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's all from that game. There's not much that happened. Steelers took over that stadium. I mean, that's about it. But
yeah, it was good defense. Offense. The Steelers' offense didn't have to do much.
no,
And
that's
so
usually the
they were
normal story of the Steelers.
okay. But I guess revenge game went well for Arthur Smith.
It was all defense. There was
Yeah.
almost no offense.
He went out there and what? It's
went,
the
"Ha ha,
it's
I
the
did
Tyrese
it."
Halliburton
Yeah.
freaking meme where it's just look gold medal. I paid like 29 minutes, but
I did
gold
it.
medal.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to a game that I'm upset that I couldn't watch because it was probably the most interesting from this noon slate was the Cardinals and Bills.
Bills were down. Was it 17-3 at half?
At
least-
was
at least
it
in the
17-3?
It was a decent difference because if I recall correctly, I remember seeing a post that at some point during the first half it was 17-3.
I can double check that. I thought it was 17-10, but it might have been 17-3.
I don't think they.
It was 17-3, with 2:40 left in the second second quarter, first half.
First half, yeah.
And then Bills marched down, scored a touchdown. But the interesting thing with that game, which if I can find it, I mean, Josh Allen did really well. He had 2 passes in the first half?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
Didn't have much.
Yeah, he was running. Then they were handing it off to Cook a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't having him throw until the second half, where they went and they scored 24. Outscored him 24-11.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, Cardinals kind of choked it away, but also at the same time, Bills are a good team.
Yeah,
Maybe not as good
Not as good,
they
but they're
were
still
last
decent.
year, but they're a good team.
they're decent.
Cardinals looking the way they did gives me a lot of hope for their season this year
Oh yeah,
compared to last year.
they might
excited.
turn around a little bit.
I'm excited.
Although I'm a little disappointed that Marvin Harrison Jr. couldn't get that pass.
Yeah, there was one pass where Murray missed Marvin Harrison,
Wide open.
but I mean, other than that, you look at Marvin Harrison. He had 1 reception for 4 yards. I think 2 targets.
Yeah, 2 targets.
So
it wasn't amazing.
it's a rough debut, but like I said, and I think this gets lost a lot recently because of the likes of like Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill, or not Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, is that rookie receivers usually don't start fantastic. And that's the same with quarterbacks. It's the same with tight ends. The rookies usually take a year or two. And it's because of mostly like those two that people are expecting them to come out and be phenomenal out of the gates. But receiver is another position where that really it hasn't been the case for most people. So like Marvin Harrison not doing much week one is not a surprise. If you give him more time in the season, I think he will look better. So, especially for fantasy users, me included, because I have Marvin Harrison, I'm not gonna panic and drop him because I think he's gonna get better and he's gonna be used more. But again, even without using Marvin Harrison that much, Cardinals kept it close, and I think that's even though it's like an L in the record books, it's a moral victory, I think. So,
Oh, definitely.
moving
to the north, we got Tennessee visiting Chicago. I thought the Titans were gonna win that game for most of it, and then the Bears started doing defense.
They only did defense.
They only
and
did
special
defense.
teams.
Williams was the first rookie to win an opening game since 2002. However, he did not have great stats.
He had under 100 passing yards. The Bears were the first team in however many years to win with under 150 total offensive yards. Yet they scored 24 points off
It
of
was all defense.
defense and special teams. So
That was it. Although the other takeaway from that game is Levis doing the "How could this be?" motion at that interception. He was
yeah,
on his knees, just like, "Oh no, it can't be."
yeah, they were up
That was a favorite.
up 17-0, and the offense the Titans basically just gave away the game.
Yeah, they were like, "Here you go."
So-
And they ran with it.
I thought the Titans would pull off an upset
Nope.
for a bit, at least. So Titans are looking at needing to fix stuff up, but the Bears,
They're in an okay spot.
for as much as the offense was hyped up to do that, though, it's just I will give credit to Eberflus as a defensive-minded head coach.
Yes,
That defense looked good.
it was pretty good.
It looked real good, but
Surprised.
you still, if your offense and Caleb Williams can't figure stuff out through the year, he might still be gone, because that's going to be a thing, is you have to develop Caleb Williams as a head coach. That's
And
going
do
to
it
kind of
right.
fall on you, even if you have to delegate someone else to do it.
Yep.
You got to figure that out. So if he doesn't end up doing that, that's still, even though again, defense looks good,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
Yeah. Patriots visiting Bengals. It's the first 4 weeks of Joe Burrow's Bengals. Like it. I should have seen that coming from a mile away, and I don't know why I just chose the Bengals to win that one.
It's so funny because the Bengals were like one of the most favored teams. Yet the moment the Bengals lost, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not surprised." It's just
Yeah,
like,
and then
why
and then some people are just like, "Oh, what was it? You see, the Bengals are bad. No, they just take a really long time to get started for some reason. They've always done this ever since Joe Burrow has been a quarterback. They've just been starting sloppy, and then they're like really good towards the end of the year.
Well, the question is it even Joe Burrow or is it Zach Taylor? And just before Joe Burrow, he didn't have a good quarterback.
It might have been both.
So,
Who knows?
it's hard to tell. Bengals, their run defense really struggled. Their offense was sloppy. It was rough. Jamar Chase was also not a great start for some fantasy users.
Nope.
He was okay, but
He was serviceable.
as someone who also had Jamar Chase, it was
Yeah,
a
rough
rough
week.
week. And I lost by 60.
Eesh.
Partially
I
because
somehow won. I'm gonna get to that when we get there, but so Houston visiting Colts. That was a good game that I didn't get to watch. Texans barely won that game. Although Stephon Diggs did have a good day. What else? There's a couple other pieces that did pretty decently. I know Stroud was doing all right.
Joe Mixon had
Joe
30
Mixon,
carries
yeah.
for 159 yards.
Yeah.
He was a workhorse. Stroud picks up from where it was last year. Texans are looking good.
Colts, they look very promising.
There's a lot of promise, and I think the funniest thing is Anthony Richardson had a really, really good throw, and that's been talked to the moon.
I didn't
But
see that one.
I think the funniest thing though is that people are like, look at how much promise he has. Look at how good we did and how well he did. He only completed 9 passes, but he still looked the way he did. And it's just like, I mean,
If it works,
there's-
it works. I mean, Houston's a very what is it? They're really good on the passing defense, aren't they? Like they have a really good pass defense, if I recall correctly.
yeah, I mean, the Indianapolis didn't run super well on him. But I mean, I think Houston's defense has just gotten better.
Yeah, the AFC South this year. This might be a really good year for the AFC South because we've been talking about that, how like this could be a really good division to watch.
Then
It's-
there's the Titans.
And there's the Titans and Jacksonville, but
I
we
mean,
shall see. Speaking of Jacksonville, oof. That was a game that they really could have won,
should have won.
should have won, but they never did. My takeaway from that was Tyreek Hill was really good, and he had the handcuff celly.
Yeah, there's the whole thing about Tyreek Hill was detained on the way to the game
That's hilarious.
for reckless driving. Yeah, I watched some of the
They have
body cam footage,
yeah.
and I mean, depending on who you are, you might not think it's that bad.
Was it that bad?
It's one of those things where it's like it's not complete. Like he's Tyreek's giving them like slightly a hard time, but they're abusing their power.
Yeah.
It's not a great look. And the officer who was mainly in charge of everything was put on
Yeah, I was about to say,
administrative leave.
Yeah, you got to put on a leave.
Because again, it's if it was like a normal person, not meaning like Tyreek Hill, but if it's just like a normal person as the police officer acting that way, you might be like, okay, but you're an officer, you're not supposed to go on a power trip, whatever. And then there was also a lot of talk about how, what if it wasn't Tyreek Hill? That was, I think that's something actually Tyreek said was like,
Yeah.
what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? What would happen?
What would happen? Yeah.
So we're not going to get too much into that side of stuff, but obviously that happened. Tyreek Hill scores an 80-yard touchdown. He does a little bit of just mocks it a little bit. But yeah, Jaguars had a 14-point lead, and they blew it in the second half, scoring no points. And I've never really seen an NFL team look like Nebraska for the past 20 years, where it was can't move the
Yeah.
ball, and well, I guess Nebraska can move the ball. The fumbles they had some fumble issues. The play calling just got kind of weird and not effective at all in the second half, and they just let the Dolphins come back. The Dolphins surprisingly were not as impressive as I was expecting, but I think that also could be the Jaguars' defense is a little better than.
Yeah, Jaguars' defense is really good. It
Yeah.
doesn't get talked about enough, but they have a pretty good defense.
I mean, the addition of Eric Armstead, who is
Yeah, I have them on fantasy, so they did pretty decently.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Jaguars fan, if the Dolphins are as good as they usually are early in the season, I would take that as
that's a good motivation.
you only lost by 3. You look at the way you lost, you're not happy, but you only lost by 3.
Only lost at 3.
On to Panthers
Staying
and
in the
Saints.
South. I put 3 touchdowns on your ass. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was such a well. It statistically it looks like a weird game because
Yes.
Carr has 3 touchdowns with only
Only
200
200
yards.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's an interesting stat line.
No one really had like there's a lot of touchdowns, but no one had like a ridiculous amount of yards.
It was more just like
It's because the Panthers were just really, really,
Really
bad.
bad.
They were.
they're still terrible.
I mean, I knew it was an underdog pick, but I thought they would look bad. This almost looks worse than how they looked last year. Somehow.
That's scary. I don't know how low can you go as an organization to completely like destroy this kind of franchise. Like, remember when the Panthers were good?
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't that long ago, but like,
It's so weird. I think Bryce Young looked worse. It'll be interesting to see throughout the
still
year.
no O-line.
But I don't know what happened because again, I didn't expect them to be good, but I also I was expecting the Saints to be mid. And the Panthers made the Saints look like potential Super Bowl contenders. Not that they are.
No,
but
Saints are mediocre as heck.
but you made them look so good for. I don't know how. I don't know how, but
I don't know.
yeah, Bryce Young
They
went
did.
out there and threw a pick right away.
Yeah, the first pass he had was a pick.
So no takeaways other than
Terrible.
yikes. So
Now we're going north.
yeah,
We're going
talk about another bad game.
Jesus. So Vikings have a good defense, I've noticed, or it's just Giants have a terrible offense.
Well, more so probably that.
Giants. There were 3 things I wanted to take away from that game, from the Giants' perspective. Giants fans were leaving the stadium. I think it was like after the 3rd quarter, I believe. There was a video on the internet. Fans found Daniel Jones while he was walking out with his bags and everything and started booing him. And also, stat line, since signing his contract, Jones threw more touchdowns to opponents than he has his own players.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, those are the 3 takeaways I got from Giants.
I'll take
Terrible.
some takeaways from the other side of things. You're looking at Sam Darnold finally winning in MetLife.
Yay!
And then there was also the bitter moment for Packers fans of Aaron Jones doing the equivalent of a Lambeau leap
Yep.
for Minnesota.
Yeah,
So
for
that
Minnesota.
was yeah. So
That might happen when they visit Green Bay.
I don't
just
know.
saying.
I think Minnesota looks pretty solid again against a bad team. I think there are some teams that are in a lot of trouble after week 1.
It is first week. I usually think week 1 as chaos and nothing is really set in stone right away. That's usually what I think of week 1.
This is true, but like looking at there's a few. I think there's 4 teams that are like in a tailspin
They're like
right now.
right now.
And I think the Giants and Panthers kind of lead the way for that.
Yep.
So
Another one here, actually, if we're done with.
I don't think they're in as much of a tailspin. I don't think they fall into that group of 4 who should be in like a massive panic. But Raiders, Chargers, yes.
Yeah. Great defense, terrible offense. That's what I got from that.
I think the Raiders' offense looked better, except that they were sloppy. They were giving the ball away. They were like not converting when they needed to, making mistakes.
After mistake.
The Raiders' defense looked really good, except for 2 plays, which gave J.K. Dobbins 120 of his 135 yards.
Oh, jeez.
He went for 10 for 135 and a touchdown, and he got them on 2 plays, which was 2 60-yard runs. And as I'm happy for him.
Yeah, good for
him
him.
and Gus Edwards, because I really wanted J.K. Dobbins to be good. He just couldn't stay healthy.
No.
And I think he is good.
He's good. He's good. He's doing well with the
just
Chargers offense, and
needs to
Harbaugh is actually using him.
Stay healthy.
So-
So I'm glad he
If this
did
was-
well.
yeah.
Just hope he stays healthy. The Chargers complete shift in what
Yes.
their identity is, but I think they did it pretty
did a
well.
great job against a rival, nonetheless.
McConkey looked solid.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
got
the
that
only
one
one who
down,
looked
too.
solid, but he looked solid.
yeah. Herbert is actually not dying all the time.
Well,
Just this one game.
handing it off a lot helps. So,
Yeah, handing
again,
it off a lot.
I don't think you will be dying a lot. I mean, you also
Yeah,
addressed
Joe Alt.
O-line.
Joe
You-
Alt, yeah.
Yeah, their O line should
Looks
be
better.
Yeah, it should be better. But again, Herbert doesn't have to throw it all the time, and that's
really
not
doesn't.
that's what you're gonna expect. You should expect out of the Chargers is run game and strong defense, which I think their defense looked good
It was
too.
pretty decent.
Again, I don't think their offense or defense looked better than the Raiders. They
No.
just were more consistent.
Yes.
So, as a Chargers fan,
They weren't making as many mistakes.
consistency looks good. As a Raiders fan, your offense looks solid. Your defense looks really good.
Good.
You just,
Didn't have
are
a
sloppy.
moment. Yeah.
If you can be consistent, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll see if that ever happens, though.
I mean, I did have the Raiders winning that game, but at least they kept it competitive.
Yeah,
sort
it was interesting up until I think
The last-
it was the last. Was it the last? No, I think it was the McConkey touchdown.
Was it the
the
McConkey
last
touchdown?
one?
Okay.
Maybe I don't remember. But on to
The
Broncos
Northwest.
Seahawks, and this.
Bo Nix, interesting. 2 interceptions, though, if I recall correctly on stat-wise. He did throw for a touchdown, and he did okay. Can develop pretty well. He looks like he's not like completely comfortable in his position, but he's easing into it. I've noticed a little bit. Seattle, on the other hand, interesting. Good stat from that. It was Smith became the oldest player to have a running touchdown with 30+ yards, which is cool. I mean,
Yeah,
I keep forgetting how old he is. But I mean, Broncos not terrible. That's surprising to say. Like they didn't look terrible this game.
I mean, I wasn't. This was an interesting game, and I think it kind of reaffirms some of the things that I was thinking about the Seahawks before the season, which is your defense looked better. But like Geno looks like he's regressing. I mean, he came out there and what was it, second play threw a pick,
Yeah.
and he's not bad, but he's not. I think the same Geno from like 3 years ago.
Yeah, because
So
3 years ago he was.
I mean, yeah, Seahawks offense wasn't fantastic.
No.
I mean, Walker got over 100 yards, but
Yeah. I'm excited to see if Geno Smith doesn't become like the starting QB anymore. I'm excited to see Howell start.
I'd be interested to see how I could see him starting a game or two.
Just like dip the toes in, get used to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, Seahawks defense looked really good. It was freaking the Broncos defense also did well. They got 2 safeties,
Like somehow, I don't know how, but they did.
and they almost got 3, I think, which would have
Would've been
tied the record
funnier,
for
yeah.
most from a team. But like you mentioned with Bo Nix, again, the interceptions were not great, but again, rookie mistakes. I think he showed a lot of promise. So if he can work on the negatives and improve on those positives, I think there's a lot of promise from him, and I think the young defense that they have has developed pretty well. So
I agree.
I don't know. Broncos, you're probably upset about the loss, but also at the same time, I think
Don't
you
be
should
too
be pretty optimistic.
Yeah, don't be too upset.
I think you can get better throughout the year. Maybe you don't make the playoffs, but
I think a good 6, 11, 7, 10, maybe 8 and 9 is very possible.
I think just promise for the next few years is
Yeah.
what you're looking for, and I think
Yeah.
again, I don't think this week solidifies that, but I think it
but
shows that it
that's
could
their
be.
ceiling. I think is up there. Like
Yeah,
they can look pretty decent this year.
They could look. Yeah.
I'm a little skeptical still.
This game,
Oh boy.
This is another team who is in a tailspin because the Browns were not favored to win this game, but I expected them to do better than this.
Yeah.
Deshaun looks horrible again, and he has a new accusation.
Yeah, I was about to say, news came out, I don't know how early, that the latest SA case could give the Browns the opportunity to terminate his contract.
Oh, that'd be
That'd
great
be
for the
amazing.
Browns.
That'd be amazing.
I don't know who they would. I don't know what they would. They'd probably just tank and be like, "All right, we're taking the first guy in the
Yeah.
in the draft."
And
But
also, the Cleveland Browns don't represent the AFC North.
no, that was.
No.
I mean, I'm not so. Again, I mean, we kind of called this as like the Browns kind of flip flop every other year as to being
yeah.
good and bad.
Yeah, I was hopeful. I was hoping that Dallas would lose like barely, like make it a close game because I knew that the Browns were not going to be as good this year. I just wanted to see like a good game. This was a terrible game, man. I didn't want to see this.
Yeah, the Browns.
The notes I have for Cowboys is dominant. That's all I have.
Yeah, I mean their defense was better.
Yep,
They had a punt return, which
that helps.
yeah, that definitely helped. But like they didn't need to do a bunch.
Yeah, CeeDee
on
Lamb
offense.
took a day off basically. He didn't do much.
I mean, so did the now highest paid quarterback in the league, which we'll come back to I think after talking about this game. But yeah, I think the Cowboys defense just looked better. The Browns offense, they had one first down in the first half or something or it was like a couple
was
minutes left in the
pretty bad.
first half.
I think I saw a stat somewhere where Watson was the first quarterback to ever throw 0 completions in the time that they've recorded like passing throws, like with generated computers, if that makes sense. Which is terrible.
Yeah, he looked really bad. Obviously they don't have Nick Chubb, which is gonna be a big thing when he comes back. But that offense was really bad, and
I think if Chubb was in this game, it would at least been a little closer, but not by that much.
I mean, I think you would have gotten more first downs, and
Oh, definitely.
I think that's the thing that again lost them the game. The Browns have a good defense, but they still let up 33 points. I think there's a point where the amount of points allowed doesn't fall solely on the defense.
It's all offense there.
I mean, look at the freaking I don't know, the Steelers Falcons game.
That was all.
Those points
That was all
came.
defense.
The points for the Steelers basically came from the defense. So
That was all that was.
a prime example of Bears too. Like
Yeah, Bears.
Titans. The Titans defense didn't allow any points. Well, actually, they allowed 3, but
Yeah.
it's like that's the point. Being is like sometimes your offense is a contributor, even if it's not turnovers, is a contributor to losing a game if you literally can't move the ball.
Yeah.
Panthers again, another example.
Mm-hmm.
So, but before we move on, I do want to address the Dak Prescott being the highest paid quarterback at $60 million a year for $240 million over 4 years with $231 million guaranteed.
He's good in the regular season, doesn't do anything in the postseason. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, again, it's hard. That's just the Cowboys. Is that Dak Prescott? Is that Mike McCarthy? Is that Jerry Jones? Who knows?
All 3 combined. Because I think it's one thing after another. It just kind of domino effects.
But
Because the thing is that Prescott is actually a decent quarterback. I will admit that. He's not a terrible quarterback. What I have an issue with is that he doesn't perform well in the playoffs. And if he's going to be paid all that money, is it going to finally be paid off? And will they finally win and go to the NFC Championship game, which they haven't been to in over 30 years?
yeah, I think the 2 takeaways you take from this is, one, like we mentioned, we're looking at probably dropping 100. If you were to sign the big 3, you would have to drop 100 million.
Jesus. Yeah.
And now you've spent 94 million on just 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the money is going to come from Micah Parsons. And the other thing being, you just paid Dak a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
If this season doesn't work out, it has to be
going
Mike
do?
McCarthy that leaves.
Yeah.
I think
What are
the
you gonna
debate
do?
was who leaves if you fail this year, Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott. I think
It
you made
might-
it clear, Mike McCarthy.
I just don't like his play calling style. I hate it so much. I don't like the Cowboys. I will say that. I'm not a fan of the Cowboys. But every time that the Cowboys lose, especially in like the playoff games, I'm just like, I'm upset that you can't even make it exciting because you keep doing stupid calls at the worst times possible, McCarthy. Like, McCarthy was carried by Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and now he's being carried by the dominant offense and defense from the Cowboys. That's all that is. It's all talent and little coaching. So, I don't know. That's just me.
I think you get a new coach, and then
Literally,
you can
yeah.
kind of judge how good Dak Prescott is. I still think $60 million a year is
If they get
a lot for someone who hasn't proven he can win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But
If they get Deion Sanders after Deion Sanders is done with Colorado, I would laugh my butt off.
no, there's no way that he coaches at the NFL level. There's no way.
Well, if you want names to your team,
Jerry
you
Jones
go.
would be like, I like him.
well, yeah, Jerry Jones is probably going to do that.
Jerry
Well,
Jones-
that was another thing. I think the reason why Dak Prescott got paid is he saw Shedeur Sanders get completely bodied by Nebraska and was like, nah, I'm going to pay Prescott. Come on, I have to bring that up. Okay?
Well, I'm just saying
happy for once.
how much weight you give that. I mean, yeah.
Whatever.
Moving on to the Buccaneers Commanders.
Commies.
Daniels didn't look horrible. I mean,
He looked pretty decent. I liked his.
ran well.
Yes. I will say this. Both quarterbacks looked amazing. They looked really good. It was the score doesn't really show it all that much, but it was a pretty well-rounded game from both sides. I mean, I didn't have any like major takeaways that were negative from this game. I mean, besides the fact that the Commanders lost. There may have been a couple that I missed, but I didn't see anything.
The thing that I look at is like looking at it again. Baker did really well. Mike Evans had a pretty good day.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels went out there, kind of showed that he's a good dual threat, but I think
that running back from the Commanders did really well in fantasy, and I didn't have him starting.
Brian Thomas.
Yep.
I think the one negative takeaway here is the Commanders have lost their defense,
Yeah, that defense is
especially their
it's not as good as it
secondary,
once was.
which is concerning because your head coach is Dan Quinn, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what you expect.
Yeah.
When you get someone like him, is not to allow 37 points and have a solid defense, but
I will reiterate this. It is the first week.
it is the first week. But with how we'll see how the Commanders grow. But I think that defense is the thing to be concerned about, which is surprising. I guess Cliff Kingsbury is a solid OC though, maybe.
Maybe.
we'll
Because
see.
he's not leading the team for once.
Looking onto the Sunday night game, this was a fun one to stream. Went into overtime
Yep.
between the
It didn't
Rams
last
and
very
Lions.
long.
It did well. Yeah, it was a very very close game between the Rams and Lions. Fun rematch.
Well,
Stafford.
It was what was it? It was 17. No, it was something 3 going to the quarter that I joined in.
17-3.
17-3. I joined. Rams came back, tied it. I think at one point.
Took the lead.
Took the lead, yeah.
2017.
2017 took the lead, and then the Lions got a field goal, tied it, and then
Went to overtime.
and
Started
Montgomery
with the
became
ball, and
beast
they-
mode.
He
He literally became beast mode there.
he had
Like,
like 3 huge carries and then capped off the drive with a touchdown. Didn't even give the Rams a chance.
No
big
breathing room.
big takeaways. Stafford had a good day. Cooper Kupp was used a lot.
Yes.
Even Puka Nacua was injured. He'll miss some time.
Yeah, but he'll be back.
Um,
Cup is Cup.
they were even when Puka was in, they were just dishing it to Kupp.
Old reliable.
But
That's who he is.
I think Lions defense looked a lot better, even
Yeah.
though Stafford had 317 yards. I still think
Defense showed up when it mattered. That's
Defense-
what it was.
yeah, defense was big. Again, only allowed 20 points.
I want these two to face off again in the playoffs, like terribly. Like this is like the making of like a good rivalry right there. It's not much of one right now, but like if Stafford and Goff continue to be as good as they are, and Stafford doesn't retire anytime soon, maybe it will become a great rivalry.
Mayhaps. But yeah, it was a good game. Lions looked like they could contend. They look like potential Super Bowl contenders. Rams look like they could definitely argue for a
Playoff spot.
They're like,
I agree.
Jameson Williams had a career day with 121 receiving yards. So it was just good, very good day by the Rams or by the Lions, and then the Rams just were able to keep up with them.
They just fell short. That's all it was.
And finally capping things off with Monday Night Football.
So the Jets now have a quarterback, but they don't have a defense now.
He survived 5 plays.
Yeah. Jets defense, I don't know what happened. That was a game I couldn't watch, but I kept checking the score here and there. But I didn't check it after like 9:30 last night.
So the 49ers basically are just really good and don't even need Christian McCaffrey to have a good run game. Because Mason came in and had almost 150 yards.
Yep.
Jets, you're concerned about your rush defense. I think their pass defense was pretty good. Sauce Gardner did pretty well, locking up Ayuk, and I think he had a couple times where he was covering Debo.
Yes.
But I mean,
yeah.
Most of their points came on the ground. For the 49ers, they made it look pretty easy. Rodgers was a little rough, but I mean, not surprised. It's that run defense is really what killed the Jets. Because other than that, I think it was close enough. I think it would have been close enough to be an interesting game and a definitely winnable game for the Jets.
The 49ers are good on all fronts. Defense showed up most of the time. Obviously, you can't stop Aaron Rodgers all the time, but they're going to be a very dominant team. I don't think the Niners are going to go to the Super Bowl this year. They are, I don't know. It might be one of those off years where they don't. I don't know. I'm getting a weird feeling about it, but that's just to be determined.
Again, I think they're still in that window of they could absolutely. They're still a super team. Scary on all fronts. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up, I do want to mention week 1.
Yep.
I went 8-8. You went 10-6.
Oh, for
in picks. And
wow.
You are tied with Ethan for first.
Let's go.
At 10-6, you both went 10-6.
Yeah, the thing is that there was those games from what was it? I didn't get the Packers or Falcons or Ravens right. I should have gone with, the actual legitimate option instead of the underdogs in that case.
I mean, they were both really close. Well, yeah, not talking Falcons. They were both really close. I think the Falcons was about as close of a score in a blowout you can get. But, yeah, congratulations to you two.
Yay.
We'll see how things look after week 2 because I'm looking to bounce back because it was a rough week. It was a rough week for any of my picks or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That was week 1.
That's all she wrote.
Football's back. Woo!
I'm back.
So,
All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We're gonna post predictions for week 2 very soon, and we'll see you then. See ya.
Bye.